So you look around and so many buildings have a dark brick bottom. Why? Because the architect put that there to give the building stability, that it's going to stand there through an earthquake. You're not afraid that it's going to collapse on you. There's a post and there's a beam holding that thing up. And so on my decorating with exteriors, I emphasize the posts and the beams. It's all has to do with the frame of reference of every human being, that they've seen all of these buildings their entire life, and it's all subconscious. Since I've done over 18,000 jobs in San Francisco, and at least 3 more people have copied each one of my jobs, do the math, and this is what San Francisco looks like.
Welcome to The Trades Show. I'm your host, Briana Ottoboni. This season, we're on location with artisans in San Francisco. In the epicenter of AI, speed, and innovation, we're exploring a return to slow, a return to craftsmanship, a return to what makes us human, our ability to make with our hands and our hearts, not just our heads. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Trades Show. Today's guest, you might not know by name, but if you have ever heard of or seen the Painted Ladies in San Francisco, you're already familiar with his work. Or maybe you walked past an old Victorian and saw a sign that said Victorian Painting by Bob Buckter. I am honored to welcome on the show today Bob Buckter, more commonly known as Dr. Color. Bob is a San Francisco native and an architectural colorist who is responsible for the colors that you see on over 18,000 buildings in San Francisco. His work has truly defined the aesthetic of this city. And in our conversation today, Bob shares how he got into this line of work, how he honed in on his true craft, and even what his formula is for choosing the colors for a historic home. So without further ado, let's get into it. Thanks so much for having me. Welcome to The Trades Show.
You're welcome.
So for people who are not familiar with your work, how would you describe what you do?
Well, I'm called an architectural color consultant. So I work on buildings, the architecture of buildings, to enhance the look. And it could possibly be for pride of ownership, or it could also be for commercial and industrial, such as a shopping center, supermarket, business park, to make it look business-like and attractive, and possibly, if it's for real estate purposes and resale of real estate, your best image will usually get you your best price. So there are a lot of business reasons why my service is valuable to people out there in the world. But principally, most of my work is residential. And in the past, I did a lot of commercial and industrial work. And now it's sort of settled into historic homes. That's always been my specialty, and it still remains my specialty, is working on historic homes. So in San Francisco, there are a number of beautifully painted buildings that people call the Painted Ladies.
Yes.
And now I've produced over 18,000 jobs just in San Francisco. Career total, 25,000 jobs all over the U.S. and outside the country. And 56 years of work. I started out as a painting contractor.
Yeah, tell us a little bit, how did you get into this work to begin with?
Well, I did a historic building. I liked how it looked. I noticed that a few homeowners were doing some interesting color work on their buildings over in the Haight-Ashbury and Mission District, and I just decided I wanted to do that kind of work and put my little signs on my finished products, and that's me, and people started calling me.
Great marketing.
Yeah, that worked since I started in 1970. By then, in 1973, I was beginning to get popular and well known already because of the signs and then word of mouth and my name and my reputation. So it just got to be more and more color work for me, and by 2006, 2007, I was producing over 600 jobs a year by myself. And actually, I was only in San Francisco and still am only in San Francisco about 6 months a year. The rest of the time, I'm either traveling on exotic vacations or I have a 1,000-acre rainforest preserve in Costa Rica, and I'm a conservationist of the rainforest down there. So I spent 80 days a year down there, 80 days, not 18, but 80 days a
Wow,
year,
lucky you.
nearly 3 months a year. And I make 7 trips a year. I'm down there conserving and keeping poachers out if possible that come and take and kill my animals and take my trees. I have to pay for people to live on my property to guard against that. But meanwhile, I do nothing but spend money down there. And up here in San Francisco, I make a living color consulting, and I have a couple of pieces of real estate that help out with my cash flow too. So that's pretty much the whole thing in a nutshell.
Is there anyone else in San Francisco specifically who does what you do?
I just recently, it's about a couple of weeks ago, heard that there is somebody else that Google said was the number one in San Francisco. And you know what? I never heard of the person's name, and all I can think of is that they paid somebody to put her up on top. Because I don't know who that is. I've never seen their work, and I don't know the name. But everybody knows me in San Francisco, anywhere I go. Especially if I'm driving my truck with my signs on it. People run up to me all the time and thank me for all the beautiful work I've done in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I was telling you, I was just talking to Lorna, but one of the things that we were talking about was how synonymous her work is with the city of San Francisco. And I feel like for you, that same concept is true, where the defining characteristic of San Francisco for a lot of people is the painted ladies, the colorful homes. That was even something that Lorna said drew her to the city, was that everything was different. No two houses looked the same. So what does it feel like to really have your work feel part of San Francisco's history?
Feels great. I mean, I'm just doing my thing. People seem to like it, and then I'm well respected, and I take care of business and always take care of my clients. So that comes back to me. People say, oh, you got to call Bob. And I also have done over 1,000 jobs in Alameda, which is across the bay, upwards of 11 or 1,200 jobs now. And it's full of historic buildings, and that's why I like it over there, and I'm well known over there too.
You're just expanding across. There's so much history all across the Bay Area.
Well, I did my first job in Alameda in 1978, and I put a sign on it, and then somebody called me, and I did another job, and after a while I was producing 20 or 30 jobs a year over there, which is significant.
I know a lot of people are moving to Alameda from San Francisco, especially with housing costs rising. Feels like it's kind of the next hub anyways.
It's a beautiful place over there. The weather's pretty decent. Everybody over there is nice. They've got a good historic group over there, and it's got some beautiful buildings.
Yeah, and so you started on the construction side, you said, or the contracting side?
Well, in 1970, I started working for a painter.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, and since I don't do well working for somebody else, I went into business for myself in 1970, painting houses. And
what was the transition from painting houses to working on the color consulting side?
Well, I began specializing in historic homes, and then came up with 4, 5, 6 colors or 7 colors on an exterior and tried to make it look beautiful. And then somebody saw that and called me up and said, come over and do my building, and it just spread like that. And back in 1970, I was painting. I began consulting colors in 1973 on the side. And then I was also doing a lot of real estate, so I was able to afford to quit painting in 1978 and took a sailing trip around the world that took nearly a year, and I decided to come back to San Francisco and do the thing I love doing best, which is color designs on historic homes.
Yes, and bring us into your process a little bit. When you have a new historic project specifically, how are you approaching figuring out what colors you're using, which colors go together? How did you develop that sense?
Well, I'm in the design business, and the design business can be all kinds of different disciplines, as you can imagine, but every designer has a different approach to designing for the client. In my approach, I'm not saying it's right, the best, or anything else, but my approach is to find out why the client called me in, how they think they want it to look, if they've seen any other buildings they like, and what their favorite colors are and what they are not in love with. And after I ask 6 or 7 questions, I can just synthesize a number of colors that can accomplish the kind of look that they're after. And my approach to design is to please the client, not dictate, but find out what the client likes. And then I show those kinds of colors, and I have a collection of brush out cards that I can show people. I also have color decks from different suppliers such as Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, and Dunn Edwards, and Farrow and Ball once in a while, and Kelly Moore came, and then they went out of business a few years ago. And there are a lot of changes in the color business all the time, and I have to keep current with that to find out what's available, what's not. But the bottom line is I want people to be pleased with my work and to enjoy what they're looking at for years.
When you're looking at the facade of a building that has multiple colors in it, what do you think some of the characteristics are that make it work, make certain color combinations work versus not?
Well, it goes back to what people's tastes are, and if somebody likes pink, I go there. If they hate pink, and it's intimidating to some men, because girls grew up in pink rooms and boys grew up in blue rooms, whatever the background is, that has a lot to do with color selection, and I try to accommodate people's tastes, is what it is.
Do you have favorite buildings that you've done or favorite color combinations that you enjoy?
Well, I just published my brand new book. It's over here. This took 3.5 years to put together, and I worked with my authors. Ben Zotto is a book writer, and Anson Moran is a photographer. And we had meetings every month and put this whole thing together, and it took 3.5 years to put all the information we needed in there to publish this book. And on the cover of this book is a building called the Mish House over on Oak Street near Divisadero. And an architect called me up, and at that time, and he was wearing certain colors in his necktie. I said, hey, we can do a dark blue, we can do some silver, we can do some burgundies, we can do some other colors, golds. And he said, yeah, let's try that. So we tested the colors, he approved of it, and we painted that. And that was back in 1976 when I was still painting with my crew.
And those were just the colors that were in his necktie?
Yeah, that's how that started out, yeah. Other times I do other buildings and I look around for the givens, what is given on the building and what's not going to change, such as brick colors on the bottom, window sash color, roof colors, whatever's there that I have to work with, I have to make coordinated with whatever I design. So that's part of what I have to do, is come up with something that's going to work with everything. And I also take into consideration what's next door, what's across the street, and the tenor of the neighborhood. So I might do something a little bit more conservative in what we call Pac Heights, Pacific Heights, and I might do something a little more wild in the Haight, who knows? But I find out individuals' tastes and go there quickly and present colors and specify all that for the painters to follow, subject to a test of the colors so that people can see what they're getting ahead of time before they pull the trigger and say, paint the building.
Yes.
So we don't want to make any mistakes. We want it to be done once right.
How do you even envision it on such a broad scale, looking at paint swatches that all kind of work together versus figuring out what colors actually go where and what that's going to look like on an entire home?
A lot of it has to do with my own style that I've developed over the years. And I've come up with a placement schedule that's fairly similar. I usually do a darker bottom color, a medium value for the main body, a light major trim color, and come up with an accent and an accent border. That's my usual approach to color design. And since I've done over 18,000 jobs in San Francisco, and at least 3 more people have copied each one of my jobs, do the math, and this is what San Francisco looks like. So I just, go through town, and people seem to roll out the red carpet and just eat my stuff up.
Yes, you deserve it. You were interviewed by KQED a few months ago, and
Right.
One of the clips that I heard you talk about that I loved was about the houses that are lacking color, or the trend towards kind of these monochromatic.
Yeah, well, there's been a trend in the last 5 or more years to doing all one color, all a dark blue, a dark gray, or something very simple. And in my opinion, that is an ignorant approach to color design, because there is no sensitivity to decorating the architecture. And ignorant meaning people are ignoring the architecture, and it's a no-brainer. They don't have to think about it. Just paint it all one dark color and they're done. The plus side of that is that they're maintaining their buildings. The negative side is a lot of important detail has been ignored. So I vision my own work as calling attention to what I believe is unique about the facade. So there might be some rosettes and rosette tips that need a little bit of gold to enhance them. And back in the day, 150 years ago, gold leaf was never used in decorating exteriors. Maybe some special museum might have done that. And you go over to Paris and you'll see a lot of gold work over there. But this is San Francisco. I am the person that popularized gold leaf use here in San Francisco, which was never done before. At first it was an uphill battle because people said, gold leaf, what? And it's just basically the frame of reference of people. They've never seen it. Since they've never seen it, they don't understand it. And that since they don't understand it, they're not going to like it. So I had to push out there and try some interesting things, such as doing gold leaf or maybe some stronger accents. And once that got out there in the frame of reference to the general public, people just said, I want this, I like gold, I'll do some fuchsia over here, I'll do some pumpkin color over there, I like a little bit of purple. I have to listen to people, and I come up with a color scheme, and I show people the color swatches and how the colors work together. That's very important, how they juxtapose, because one color can actually change when it's next to another color. That's called juxtapositioning of colors, and what the net result is in one view of the finished product. So it's tricky, but I've been doing it for so long, it's fun and it's easy.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
It seems like it's very intuitive to you.
I think so. I mean, I've developed my own style, and I like what I do, and I get a lot of pats on the back every day. People run up to me and say nothing but great things to me, and it feels great after 56 years of doing this.
Yeah, it's such a creative process. Do you have any creative pursuits outside of color design?
Well, always kind of been a car guy, so I have collected several Mercedes-Benz convertibles. My first Mercedes-Benz convertible was a 1960 220 SE Cabriolet, and it just needed everything, and I restored that and put my own colors on it, including a red pinstripe, which never was done by Mercedes back then in 1960. But I think it looks pretty good. But I've made that into a show car. And my other Mercedes after that was a 1955 300S Cabriolet. They only made about 15 of those cars that year in Germany. And I bought one, and it was always a high-end vehicle. I put my own colors on that one too. And now I own a 1971 280 SE 3.5 Mercedes-Benz Cabriolet, and I went back to the original color on that because I happen to like dark blue, and it's stunning, and I enjoy it. I've restored cars as a sideline, as something that I'm interested in, and it's been very enjoyable. And I drive down the street, and I like to think that I'm parting the Red Seas when I drive down the street, because everybody goes, oh, wow, oh, and then start asking questions. But I believe that they were done in good taste. My one advice and my one drive is to try to achieve good taste. And what is good taste? That's a good question. And in my opinion, good taste means when people look up there and it tastes so good. That's good taste.
Yeah, that's something that I think, especially with technology and AI doing everything that it's doing, that's something that a lot of people are talking about, is the one kind of differentiator that separates humans from machines, is that we have this like subjective taste. And I think it's really hard to quantify or qualify what exactly that means or what it is. How do you think people can develop taste? Or do you think people can develop it?
Some can and some can't. Some people don't know good taste and never will be there. But it has to do with what appeals to the general public. That's my definition of good taste, and the opposite is true for bad taste. So it's a free world. You can use AI. I had a couple of different clients call me up recently and said, well, we played around with AI, but we know you're Dr. Color, and we want to hear what you have to say, and then they're going to have to spend money on me, but I'm going to make it well worthwhile, and I'm going to come up with something in good taste for them.
Yes. It's interesting that you said something that appeals to the general public, but there is still that kind of like subjective or intangible quality, because I think all of these machines, they're really great at predicting, and so they're really great at creating something that's pretty predictable or generic, but oftentimes those are the things that lack taste. So how do you come up with things that are more broadly appealing, especially when it's, done on the facade of a house that everyone is walking by, but also bring that level of uniqueness and kind of human creativity to it?
Well, the main difference is I'm doing a personal consultation with people and showing people visually in front of their own eyes what these colors look like and how they work together. And then at the end of my consultation, I make sure that they give me a tentative okay, that they're excited about what I came up with. And virtually everybody that I work with at the end of our meeting is excited, and they say that they're excited. That's what I try to achieve. And then once the job gets done, they're going to enjoy it for years. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so, okay, I want to go backwards and then forwards a little bit. So backwards, you said that you were starting painting and then you were doing color consulting on the side, but you were still painting with your crew, and then you went on this year-long sailing trip around the world.
Right.
And then you came back and you just wanted to do the color consulting.
Right.
How did that experience bring you to that decision?
I was fed up with people trying to sue you and trick you and not paying you and all kinds of negative stuff, and I don't need to deal with negative things. And then I was in a good enough financial position to say, I'm done painting. And just when I came back from my around the world trip, basically when you retire, what do? You do what you want to do. I wanted to continue to design colors, and maybe it sounds like a broken record, but I'm still doing it. Yes. And I'm still enjoying it.
Yes, and what led you to want to create a book?
I just felt that I owed it to myself and the general public, because this has a lot to do with how San Francisco looks. And I thought that the book would appeal to a lot of people here in town and maybe outside of San Francisco about what's been done. This is all about my own work in here, but it was just something that I knew I had to do like as long as 10, 15, 20 years ago, and I just never got around to it, and finally said I better get it done or else I'll be pushing up daisies pretty soon, and in 2 months I'm going to be 80 years old. So that's a reminder about your time here on life, and you better get things done while you're here.
How do you think about, someone else being able to take over this work when you decide you're ready to leave it behind?
Well, I haven't really tried to bring somebody up in my skill. I do have a friend, Nita Riccardi, who's a painting contractor that I've worked a lot with, and she's picked up some of my ideas, and she knows how I do things. She's doing things herself in a different way. There still might be time for somebody to be interested in learning how I do it, but then they can move on and do things their own way too. Basically, I have to provide a specification for the painters to follow, and what I do is do photographs typical of all of the architecture, close-ups, and then I do a paint by number, and it's a very simple procedure how to follow where the colors go on the building. It's very basic, and I think most people did paint by numbers when they were in the 4th grade, so it's a very simple approach. Then I have a list of the names of the paints, colors, brands, formulas, sheens, and placements, so that people can get that material exactly and put those colors in the right place. And then a third element to my package is to provide the exact color swatches that have to show up on the building. That's the way to lock in my design, and it works.
So it sounds like there's kind of the operational piece of how you work, of how you're handing off your paint to the contractors and instructions for them. Mm-hmm. But do you feel like this is a teachable skill and something that, like the taste part of it, do you feel like that is something that someone could learn?
I think it's definitely a learnable skill. Really haven't run across too many people interested, and there probably would be, but it could be somewhat of a discipline and a skill. And in my case it is, but I see the world a certain way, and most of the time I'm wearing rose-colored glasses, and that's how I see the world. Ever since I was probably 18, I was wearing tinted shades, pink shades actually. I kind of got that from John Lennon or something, I don't know what, but it's just kind of in my trademark. But I have a certain look once I put these on.
Very hip.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to share about your work?
Well, the technical part is back in about 1990, and I had already been doing this for 20 years by then. I used to have a secretary type everything up, and each job took about 45 minutes to type up. I had a computer programmer come in and create a new program that summed everything up, so that now I can do a specification sheet, not taking 45 minutes, but taking about 7 minutes. So it saves a lot of time.
When was that you did that?
1990.
Wow.
Yeah, I went over on computer in 1990, and I've got almost all the records of everything I've done since 1990 in my computer. And I have people calling me up and say, well, you did a job for us in 1991. And I said, yeah, I see it right here on my computer. And what colors did we use? I said, I've got the record of it. I could send it to you, but the problem with that is in the industry, things change as far as the names of colors. Actually, if the paint company is still in business, the supplier is still supplying. Colored paint bases change all the time. Certain things are not available. Everything's changing all the time. So I have to adapt, and as I go, make modifications to what's current. But otherwise, this program I've got in my computer, it just makes things so easy and so fast because I've got all the information in there. And normally I'm entering new colors all the time. Every day I'm entering new colors, and I'm adding those to my data bank, and I can call them back up from last month or 30 years ago, and it's still there. Basically, it just makes things a lot faster.
Wow. Okay, I'm very interested in that intersection of really craftsmanship and technology. I interviewed a florist who said sort of similarly, she has a data set with the recipe for every floral arrangement she's ever made. And
Sure.
I think that when craftsmanship is so unique and just developed over so many years, and that becomes your kind of secret sauce, to have that in data is so powerful. So that's amazing that you were doing that so long ago also. I mean, that's what I think so many people are trying to do now with AI.
Well, back in 1990, I was married in 1989, and back then Karen told me, you got to get a program to automate this, and so that you can do it a lot more quickly and not even have a secretary type it up for you. So I enter everything myself. I don't have anybody working for me. That's the way I like it. I've been operating solo the entire time. Someday maybe somebody will follow in my footsteps or approach me.
I hope so. If someone's listening to this and wants to apprentice, let's continue this.
Well, I'm open to it.
You've been in this space for 56 years. What do you feel like has changed the most?
Over a 56-year period?
Yeah.
Well, the color trends have changed.
What were they when you first started?
Well, back in the 70s, it was earth tones. Beige, white, brown, and a little bit of orange. That comes to mind. And those colors were popular then. But ever since then, I've just changed and extrapolated and tried new stuff. And one of the most difficult things in my business is to come up with something fresh and brand new and different, and to come up with something unique. And it's real easy to fall back on what I already know and what I'm familiar with, and it's safe to specify for people because I know what it's going to look like.
Especially after 25,000 jobs.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's all over the world. I did a job down in West Australia, in Perth, and it turned out to be spectacular. But basically, anything I do remotely becomes kind of iconic because there's nothing else around like it. Out here in San Francisco, I've got to be real careful and come up with new stuff all the time. And it's fun, but it's difficult. It's hard to keep pulling stuff out of my brain all the time, new stuff, and come up with something that's going to work for people.
Where do you get your ideas?
Mainly from the client. I hate purple. I hate pink. I love green. Oh, well, take a look at this. How do you like that? And what else do you like? I like a little bit of blue. Oh, take a look at this. and pretty soon I've got a palette for somebody. That's how it works.
Okay, and so we talked about what has changed, and what do you feel like in the past 56 years has stayed the same?
Well, what has stayed the same is my own personal style of color placement. And you'll see, by the way, in this book, I have instructions in here to do it yourself and guidelines so that you don't make mistakes. So there's a section in there that you can use to guide yourself. So here, my own personal theory is I start out with a medium value for the main body of the building. Value means how light or dark a color is. I usually start out with a moderate chroma. Chroma means how intense a color is, how strong or conservative or low key it is. And then I start out with a major trim color of an off-white or a light color to contrast with the medium value for the main body. And then I come back with a darker shade of the main body for the bottom of the building. So you look around and so many buildings have a dark brick bottom. Why? Because the architect put that there to give the building stability, that it's going to stand there through an earthquake. You're not afraid that it's going to collapse on you. It's strong. There's a post and there's a beam holding that thing up. And so on my decorating with exteriors, I emphasize the posts and the beams. And inside the beams, there's a band, which is called a frieze. And I make that strong so that it looks like it's holding up the building. So I'm taking what the architect did and making it another step or two more solid and safer to go inside. And people don't know why they like it, but it's all has to do with the frame of reference of every human being, that they've seen all of these buildings their entire life, and it's all subconscious. But why does it look good? It's got a post and a beam. It's not going to fall down. I'm confident. You look in this room and you see headers on top of post and beam right there. You know that you can walk in through that space and it's not going to come down and hit you in the head. So these are all subconscious feelings that people have about architecture, and I come along and emphasize those aspects and make them feel even more comfortable and safe.
How did you learn that?
How did I learn what?
Did that just come intuitively to you?
It just boiled it down. I figured it out. I thought a lot about all this stuff. I went to college. I graduated. I was a social science major, and they taught me the scientific approach to looking at things, and I became analytical. And I look at this. That's a post and a beam. It's holding that up. Oh, maybe it's important for people to feel even more secure if it's accented the right way. So that's what architecture is about, is creating images that people feel good about. There are a lot of architects out there that are trying to do their own thing and try to make their own name and their own reputation. And that's fine, because that's the creative spirit. But I've had some clients of mine said, I don't like what the architect did. Bob, what can you do to straighten this out without tearing the building down and rebuilding it? I said, well, we can emphasize this frieze up here. We can put a little gold leaf over there. Here's your posts, and we can do this, we can do that. Oh, okay. And then they follow my plan, and they like it.
Where can people buy your book?
If you go to drcolorbook.com, drcolorbook.com, go on the computer and just order one.
Perfect. I'll put the link too, so people can buy it.
It's what I call a very nice coffee table book. You can put on any coffee table anywhere, and people will look and be interested in seeing the images that are in there.
So I always end with kind of a rapid fire, so you can just answer the first thing that comes to mind. So the first is, we talked a little bit about technology. So what is one way that you think technology has negatively impacted work that you do?
I've had a few people lately who have looked into AI doing colors on their buildings, and a few of those people have come back to me and said, well, there's something lacking here.
Yes.
And I come over and see what they've printed. I go, yeah, they should have done this, they should have done that, and that's my opinion. But it's a free world. You want to go out and do an AI on your facade? Do it. If you want to paint it all black? Do it. I'm a colorist, and I want to make everybody look good. That's my approach.
Yes. And what is one way technology has positively impacted your work or your business?
I don't think technology has done much, except when I got my new program, it speeded up the process of specifying colors and recording all of those colors. It's just, for me, it's revolutionary. And there's only one program in the world like it, and I have it, and I paid for it. And back then in 1990, $5,000 was a lot of money to pay for a program, and I don't know what it's worth today, but it saved me so much time. I mean, I can just go boop, 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 done.
Yes. And is there anything in the world of color that you're particularly excited about right now? Any color trends?
All I can tell you is that it's coming from my own self, trying to come up with new, exciting color concepts. That's what's exciting for me, is to do one-off designs if possible. To be creative and come up with something successful is one of the most difficult things to do.
Yes. Okay, and if someone maybe has never heard of architectural color design and they listen to this and they're like, that's what I want to do, what advice would you have for them besides calling you?
Go out, start painting a few buildings and experimenting. That's what I did. And I wouldn't quit until the client was happy with it. And then I did one job, and then I did the same thing on another job, and boom, boom, boom. Pretty soon I had a name and a reputation. And with every one of my jobs, I require the painter to test those colors on the building after it's been primed, so that they don't have any interference with the existing colors. And then the client can look and see what they're going to be getting. And I do not believe colored renderings are the way to go. They can only give you a kind of an approximate idea, because colored renderings printed or on a screen never match the color swatch. Never. And I don't know what kind of technology could do that, but I can't imagine what could do that. So you've got to test the colors on the building in order to know what you're getting. Some paint suppliers will do renderings for you for free. You can ask Sherwin-Williams, you can ask Benjamin Moore, you can ask Dunn Edwards, and I work with all those people when I have to produce a rendering, because there's a board of directors meeting, and that's what people demand, and that's what they're ordering me to do. Okay, well, I'll get a rendering for you, but I can't guarantee that the finished product is going to be the same as what you're seeing in that image. So once the real colors and test paints get tested on the facade in the places that they're supposed to go and be placed, that's the best way to know what you're getting. And that way you're going to be way down the line ready to go and have something that you're confident with, that you can pull the trigger on it and know that it's going to work out.
Okay, and then last question. What is one thing that, for anyone listening or watching, what is one thing that you would want to leave them with?
Just go out, anguish over it, try some ideas, no matter how crazy they might seem, test them, and either like them or modify them and refine them. And it's a patient process, but diligence is the key.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, or review the show. You'll find everything we talked about, including links to today's guest, in the show notes. You can follow the show on socials @TradesShow. And if you have any guest suggestions, requests, or any questions, my contact information is in the show notes. Full episodes during the season are live every other Thursday on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Thank you for being here. See you next time.